Well, Megan, it's a pleasure. I just want to say thank you so much for speaking with me. And I want to touch base and just see how you're doing with the rollout of everything so far. And then we'll kind of work backwards. But how's everything been? How's the feedback been? Talk to me all about what you've been receiving.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. We're excited to talk more about this. It's been going really great. Our social and marketing team has just been doing a great job at getting these like insane scene lifts out from our episodes. We had a kid that drank bleach on set, and that just like went crazy. DK actually from Chicago Fire, which was like amazing story to put out there. And so we've just got so much great feedback from our audience and just saying like we never knew these things happened, or this was like such a cool like behind the curtain checking out what happened with production, because a lot of the time we see these shows and we just feel like it's all real life and cameras are just following these people around and these things just happen, and it's like there's a lot more that goes into it, and that this show really was kind of a love letter to people who love reality TV in that sense, and then some dark stuff.
Definitely. Well, I just want to say I'm a fan of reality TV myself. I've had my own experiences in the space as well, and it's an interesting space to navigate for sure. No matter what, I think even as a viewer, there's obviously viewers that have perceptions of reality TV. Obviously, it's very different being in the reality space and being the one that's being recorded, being the subject virtually. I think it's very important that this docu-series has come to be. When did the conversation start to swirl around this docu-series, and what did the timeline look like from start to finish to be able to really bring this docu-series to life?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, we actually had a big Dark Side brainstorm with our full development team, because Dark Side is one of our really big franchises that very successful, and we were trying to figure out what's the next installment. And we had Dark Side of the '90s, Dark Side of 2000s, and we had said like, what about reality TV? Everyone loves reality TV. There's a lot that needs light to be shed on, and so we started looking into that and got into development. And then the reality TV reckoning happened, which was kind of like a beautiful beam of light for us that we're like, oh, people want to hear about this. People want to talk about it. And so just kind of like grabbing from the reality TV reckoning, all of the people that were coming forward from that. And honestly, for us too, reality TV stars are just so raw and real in their shows. And so they really wanted to come forward and talk about their experiences. And a lot of the stars that we talked to from these the seasons that we looked at in the show, they had never really got to tell their story while it was happening because social media wasn't really big back then. So they didn't have that opportunity and outlet that stars now do. And so we kind of gave them this lovely platform to kind of come forward and say, hey, this was my experience, this is what happened, and this is kind of the real story of those shows.
That's so neat. I love the idea of people being able to tell their story because I think that that's also something like you mentioned, and I know that the show is very wide ranging in terms of the different types of shows that it's touching on, and we're seeing older reality shows, we're seeing newer ones that are still ongoing, and I think that you guys did a really great job even with the selection of the shows that you have highlighted and that you're continuing to highlight throughout the rest of the rollout of the series. I'm curious to ask you from my own perspective. Like you mentioned, we are kind of in like this reality reckoning situation,
Yeah.
and I love it. And one person in particular that comes to mind, I'm a big Love Is Blind person. I watch every season. At this point, I don't even know why I keep watching. I just do. I just like
Keep
I'm in.
going. You got to stay with it.
Yeah. But we have like somebody, I'm sure you're familiar with Nick from Love is Blind, who's obviously pioneering this like whole mental health project and
Yeah.
organization, and that's like his MO. Do you think that people like him and other reality people, and then obviously projects like this with this docu-series, do you think that the needle is going to shift in the correct direction to implore and create more of a safe space so reality TV can continue to operate? What are your thoughts on that?
No, totally. I agree. I think at the end of the day, these reality stars and contestants, like they're putting a lot out there and they're letting cameras into their homes. And you have to be in the right mental space for that to happen. And obviously, fights are going to break out and makeups and breakups and all of that, and that because that's just life. And I think at the end of the day we do need to make sure there's some protection for those people so that they can do the thing that we want to watch, and so I think slowly but surely the tides are turning when it comes to that with production. And the reality TV reckoning and funds like that. We do speak about that with Hell's Kitchen, really on the outside when it comes to chefs. Like there's really a big mental health journey that's going on with chefs right now as a result of what happened on Hell's Kitchen and kind of shedding that light on what was going on behind the scenes. And so I think that the biggest thing is just making sure that these people feel like they have the support on set, whether there's a therapist on set or someone that can just be there to say, hey, wait a second, like we need a minute. I do think the tides are turning.
Definitely. I'm curious to ask, especially I know we have like Housewives coming up, and I'm a big Housewives fan myself. And there are a couple episodes that are coming down the pipeline where these shows are still on, even like with Survivor, like that's still a show that is existing on TV currently. They're still recording. Understandably so. I think that they do have hits on their hands, but there are the fair share of issues that come with
Yeah.
it. What does that look like from your end, from Vice's end, talking about shows that are already ongoing, and that are still filming? What does that look like? And is there any pushback? How does that navigate through? Like, obviously, I'm sure Vice doesn't necessarily want to take down the idea of filming Real Housewives. However,
Totally. Yeah.
raising awareness is great. What does that look like from your end of things?
Yeah, so kind of going back, like the way we went into this series and this season was really looking at what I call as like the golden age of reality TV. And this was like before social media would kind of reveal all the bombshells that you were going to see in that season, before social media was out there that people could get their story out there. And so the way we kind of approached it was like, let's look at those seasons and kind of the raw reality of what they were, because right now there's a lot different of way of they film it, where they have they actually are pushing things out on social media so that you want to watch it, so that you can see all the background that happened into it. When it comes to Real Housewives, they're picking cameras back up now because people are seeing everything happen on social media, when before you didn't know any of this stuff had happened. And so I think really for us for this season was to go behind the scenes of before social media and all of that existed, and to really kind of like dive deeper into like production and how that worked, because right now it's like you get to see those photos of that like 100 people cruise for Survivor, and you're like, oh, okay, so they're not really surviving. And it's funny, I lament to my friends all the time is that people think that they have a whole like pizza crew like behind the scenes, and when cameras go down, like everyone's eating and everything's fine. And really that's not what's happening. And Kelly Wigglesworth talks about just like how like the calorie deficit that she was in just like starting out. And Richard Hatch was saying like, hey, I went on with a little bit more, and I even like was at the end of it just like I need food, and those things are real. And so that's kind of the way we went into it, was let's look at before all the safety precautions, all of that kind of really came about, and let's get into that part of it. And that's why this show really works, is because we're looking at the series that started before social media and all of the precautions that kind of were just like hazards of learning came about. And like Kid Nation, I think, is a great example, is there's no way we could pull that off in 2024.
No, not at all. No.
And and those were some like really fun and scary experiments that we did in like the early 2000s of reality TV, which you could never do now.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Good God, nothing would fly today compared to what was
Yeah.
done then, for sure. Oh my gosh, that's so true. It's horrible. It's so true. Thank God, I mean, for the better, really.
The more you
Uh,
know.
for the more you know, thank goodness. We love time progression, changing things. I'm curious to know your perspective. Obviously, you hear it all the time. It drives me personally insane when I hear it, but I understand when people say it. It's the catchphrase, you signed up for this. And
Right.
that's what happens with reality TV. And I look at it this way, like, yes, you signed up for it to a certain extent, but you didn't sign up for the byproduct
Right.
aspects and components that come with it. What is
Yep.
your report to people that look and say, well, you signed up for this, when they say that to people that are in the predicaments that they are with the reality
Totally.
TV
I mean,
space?
I think it's very easy to say you signed up for this. You signed up for cameras to be in your home. You signed up to be on an island with no food for 39 days.
Right.
You But the thing is you don't really know until you're in it. And I think that was a really big thing with Survivor, is they got this kind of guide to living island life. And it's like pit vipers and thorns and things that can kill you in the jungle. And you see on TV, these people kind of wearing their bandanas and they're having fun and they're making friends. And you don't see the 24-hour span of not eating and not getting food and kind of being just like, these are the only people you're going to talk to for 39 days. That you can never sign on a dotted line. Yes, I understand that's going to happen. And so I think, yes, you understand that cameras are going to be there, but until you're in it, and we hear a lot of reality TV stars talk about this, like until you're in it, you don't really know what you signed up for. And so I think it's thinking about it at the end of the day, like we're all human, and like you and I, like we have no idea what they're signing up for, and frankly, I don't think they do either until they're in it. And it's something that I think we're grateful that people want to go in and do this, and so then we can, for the entertainment at home. But I think we also have to like understand that you might not know really what you're getting into, even though you're signing for it.
Yeah, I could never do Survivor. Let me tell you right now. Listen, I have the utmost respect. Absolutely not.
I
Like
say that I mean, it's
I
one of those
couldn't.
things where I have that false sense of confidence that I'm like, oh, I could totally do that. I'm from
Right.
Vermont, like I can do this. And then you're there and you're like, I don't know how to make a fire. No one taught me how to make a fire when I was younger.
The Girl Scouts did not teach me that. I
Yeah,
competed
no.
for a bike for selling Thin Mints. Like on
Yeah.
my honor, I cannot start a fire from scratch. I'm sorry, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
No, I tip my hat to those people for sure. I love that Vice has given the space for people to be able to tell their stories. What did the process look like for having those come forward? Did you have, I guess, more or less like, did you have maybe a show in mind and then Vice reached out to the contestants that were on the show from years prior, obviously like reaching out, seeing if they wanted to speak on the experience? Or did you find maybe the reverse of that, where there was a collective group of people similarly from similar shows and then that's how you guys decided from there? What did that look like?
Yeah, so the idea came before the reality TV reckoning really kind of like lit off. And so we kind of really had this idea first of people that we wanted to go to. And then when the reckoning happened, it kind of helped us in that sense of people realize like, hey, I do have a platform. I can actually speak on this. And I feel confident to speak on this. And we had an amazing booker that reached out to really our top choices. And thankfully, our top choices wanted to speak to us. Having Vicky Gunvalson, the OG of the OC, come and talk about her experience was like something so wild to see, because that is the person that you want to hear from. You want to hear from Richard Hatch. You want to hear from Kelly Wigglesworth. And we were able to give them a platform. And the whole thing about Dark Side is it sounds like it is this dark and ominous show. And really what it serves the purpose is to shed light on situations or things that you didn't know, on your favorite things. And so what we really wanted to do is give them a platform to tell the stories that the audience didn't get to see. And I think because of that, and because Vice, we're raw, we're real, we love to just really get into the nitty gritty. People felt like secure to come and tell their stories to us.
I love that. I love that they felt so supported. And I think that that speaks loads to you guys as well, because the fact that they're willing to, it's kind of interesting to me psychologically, because what they're doing is they're also volunteering to go and speak on it and deal
Totally.
with any possible backlash that they may have healed from,
Yep.
whether it's from the overhead people that they dealt with, the network, the fans, whomever. And then I love that they trusted you guys to also sit them down in front of a camera, interview them, and edit it all together. Like that's
Yep.
really incredible to me that they're basically willing to put themselves back in. Like, I mean, for a docu-series, it is reality to a certain degree because of the interviews and the
Yeah.
anecdotes they're sharing.
And I think just to add on that, I think the other reason why they felt comfortable with us is that we really pride ourselves on showing you the full story.
Mhm.
And a lot of the time they fall subject to what we call frankenbiting, where you'll have a 2-hour conversation and it's edited down to 5 minutes. And it's like, wait a second, like that's not what I meant, or that's not what came after that. And so that was a really big thing for us, is that we're not frankenbiting you. We're telling the full story. And when you even like in our marketing materials, putting together a trailer, putting together scene lists, like that was a really big thing we wanted to keep top of mind, was everything needs to be in context, and the whole point of telling your story is for that opportunity. And so I think that's the other reason, is they knew Vice and kind of the integrity that we have is we want to tell your full story, like raw and real.
I love that. I just love the amount of support that they received, and that I'm sure that they're receiving even as these episodes are rolling out. What overall are you hoping with the docuseries continuing to roll out with episodes? And obviously, at that point then I feel like honestly, I feel like you guys are gonna have a demand and there's so many other reality shows. I'm hoping for round two. Just to
We
be
are
kind
too. It's so funny when we were first putting together the episodes for this first season.
of
Every single time we go into meetings, someone else would be like, "But what about this? What about Love
right.
Island? What about?" It's like because everyone has their favorite reality TV show,
Mhm.
and so it was like so hard picking 10 episodes just alone, and like I really had to keep true to like these are the OG like reality shows. Like we really need to tell like kind of the beginning of reality TV for this first season. And kind of then for the second season, we can get into the Vanderpump Rules. We can get into the Kardashians.
Please. I love it. So I could not contain myself on
No,
that. Oh
but
my gosh.
it's people like you though that are giving us feedback that are saying like, hey, I get to watch my favorite reality TV show, and then I get to watch this show and see what happened behind the scenes. And that's really what we wanted to get from it, and also give a platform to people that weren't able to speak on it back in the day. And America's Next Top Model during COVID, everyone started binge watching it and
Did.
going on TikTok and being like, "I'm sorry, did no one like see this as an issue as like body shaming and
Right.
putting people in graves and doing photo shoots in graves? Like no one talked about this." And so I think we're just kind of like creating a little community of like, hey, we hear you and we want to put that out there. And that's really what Vice is about, is like finding those audiences and bringing to them new and in new ways to tell stories that they've heard before.
That's amazing. Well, I'm just gonna pitch it to you guys, but you guys could do like a whole season two just on the dating shows,
Oh my
honestly.
God. Oh,
And it's these, I mean, there's so many.
all
Oh
the
my
all
gosh.
Love is Blind, Love
Love is Blind, Love
Island.
Island. If it has love in the title, it's gonna be an episode. Like
Who doesn't love a
indefinitely,
good dating show? Well,
right?
and like The Bachelor and
Oh
Bachelor
God.
Nation, like there's a book called Bachelor Nation that I read where it was like behind the scenes of production, and that like also kind of was always in the back of my mind, where they had this one producer that knew how to make the women cry and would come in like on cue if they weren't. It's a wild book. I highly recommend if you're a reality TV fan to read
I
it.
will.
But that definitely also part of what I loved about that book, I also brought into the development, because it again just kind of like pulled back the curtain of like what is really happening in those interview rooms, that you don't see the 20 hours that they were sitting there, on their last nerve of like, okay, I'll tell you what you want.
That's another thing I think that, and I'm sure even just this is something that you guys are highlighting in general, but one thing that I've seen and witnessed is like the amount of like food that they'll kind of withhold from you and sleep and everything because they want you on edge, of course.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see like how they end up treating people. It's cruel, and I'm glad that obviously programs like this exist and are moving everything forward to where
Yeah.
and people can have a safer and more well-versed experience and actually get what they're going in for, I think.
Totally. Yeah,
Oh,
no, I completely agree. And like I think going back to kind of Bachelor is they were saying that they kind of create this world that the man or woman that you're there competing for, like that becomes your outlet. Like that's the only time that you
yes.
leave your hotel room. And so it's like, of course, like that is now your Cinderella story. And we talk about Joe Millionaire, where the women were kind of like cooped up in these rooms. They didn't have access to their phones. They couldn't even write a postcard home. They couldn't even go for a run. And like, well, from production, like I understand that you don't want to ruin production. You don't want people to see these people out and about, but it also just psychologically just really does something in your brain when the only thing you're thinking of is on Survivor, like getting to the end of those 39 days and winning the money and making relationships in that way. Or it's like you're on a dating show and that's the only person you're dating. It's just it's a very strange world. And going back to like you signed up for it, you don't realize the psychological aspects that you
Oh,
sign up for.
no, you don't. Also, I'm
A lot.
sorry. A hot take, one that always cracks me up is I'm like, you win all that money, but then you're gonna get taxed. Like
Yeah.
nobody thinks about it's like $50,000, but X amount for taxes. I'm like, dude,
Like,
you didn't
oh,
even
wait a
win as
second.
much as you thought.
I just did all of this for not $1 million.
Actually, like 700 if we're
Yeah,
lucky,
yeah.
whatever it is.
I always love like, yeah, those like little aspects. It's like, actually it's this much.
Yeah, exactly. And you're gonna need
Yeah,
BetterHelp.com for the rest of your life. But at least you
come on.
won.
Yeah.
You
At
did
least
a
you
good
won.
job.
You can
At
say
least
that. Well, Kelly Wigglesworth literally said like I'm actually happy I didn't win at the end of the
Yeah.
day because I that was one of the most like realist things I've ever heard. It's like, honestly, I'm okay that I didn't win.
Win is not winning. Honestly, I love that though. And I love the realness that came with everybody that we've seen so far on the
Yeah.
docuseries.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I want to open up the floor. Anything that you can tease for I'm personally really freaking excited for Toddlers and Tiaras. Listen, I love that show. I'm excited for that episode, but anything that you can tease without giving any spoilers away for fans that are watching and that are continuing to watch the rest of this series.
Totally. Yes. Survivor, if you haven't, I'm a huge Survivor fan. And I think right now, because people have talked about a lot of like people setting themselves home and not kind of understanding the game. And it's really great that we get into kind of the first season of Survivor and really what went into behind the scenes of it all, because some of it wasn't supposed to be the way that it was. And for the Survivor episode especially is just it's so much backtelling of what happened on production, and maybe they were given some food when they weren't supposed to. So really getting deeper into that. And then for Extreme Home Makeover, these are kind of like the two episodes that are upcoming. We
Mhm.
really dive into what happened after the camera crews left. No one really like talks about that. Is like they have this
Good
beautiful
point.
mansion and like they have all these new computers and all this stuff. And it's like, well, we just showed America that you have all this expensive computers and TVs in your home and we left you and you're just there to fend for yourself. And there's one very kind of terrifying story of a break-in that I'll leave for the episode.
Oh,
But it's very scary. And I don't think anyone really realized, like, after giving this like beautiful mansion to someone on live television, what really happens after that.
that's insane. I've always thought about like even this isn't so much like reality related, but whenever they'd announce like lottery winners and things like that, I'm like,
Mhm.
I'd like to remain anonymous for that. I
Yeah.
love that that is an aspect. Oh, I'm so excited. I love it. I love that that's an aspect because nobody thinks about things like that. Like you said, when the cameras go down,
Yeah.
then what? You know,
and
like you said,
and, and
there's
it
tons of
we
things.
didn't have there was no way of anyone saying like, hey, we're in trouble or anything like that. It had to get to the like local newspaper or local news before someone actually saw there was an issue with it.
How do you call the cops and be like, "Hey, listen, we just shot
Yeah.
this show. I love my new
I
fridge,
have
but
a
it's
mansion.
my life."
No one understands what's happening. Please
The cops
help.
are like, check your privilege. I gotta go
Yeah.
a break it, a different
Yeah.
break it. That is so funny. Well, thank you so much for teasing that. And thank you also just for taking the time to sit down and to chat with me. I'm such a fan of just everything that you guys are doing. I love it so much. Please keep going. I will be eating popcorn watching.
I was gonna say, just keep watching and
I will.
we'll bring you another season.
I will. Please do. And if you guys need like a consultant, hit me up. I would love
I
it.
love it, definitely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and thank you again for everything.
Thank you. I appreciate it.